Hello everybody, I hope you are doing well. I am Ehtishamul Haq and today we will be discussing about choice. The topics which we are going to cover in today's lecture are optimal choice or consumer equilibrium, consumer demand, taxes and optimal choice. So let's first discuss about optimal choice. This is the budget line. As we studied in earlier classes, that budget line showing different combination of two commodities that exhaust consumer budget at given prices. And we also have covered about the indifference curve, a curve showing different combination of two goods that gives the same level of satisfaction. And we also have covered about the assumption that our consumer is rational. So a rational consumer wants to maximize his or her satisfaction subject to the available budget. So the optimal choice or consumer equilibrium is taking place where the indifference curve is just tangent to the budget line. Why? So for that we have to consider other points that our consumer can consume with the available budget. For example, point A. Now point A, our consumer can attain this combination of good X1 and X2 and it is going to exhaust our consumer budget. But if we compare the satisfaction, so it is lower than the optimal choice point. Why? Because it is on the lower indifference curve. Similarly, we can think of another point, as this point is also on the same indifference curve, so the satisfaction getting by our consumer at point A and at point B is same. So the only possible attainable level of satisfaction that will be higher in this case is point C. So if the indifference curves are convex to the origin, so at the point of tangency we will be having the optimal choice or consumer equilibrium. So we can define optimal choice as the bundle of goods that is associated with the highest indifference curve that just touches the budget line. However, there are some exception cases to the tangency point. The indifference curve might not have a tangent line. Now, if indifference curves are kinked, so at the point of tangency there may be as many tangents as you like or as you can draw. So at this point of optimal choice, the indifference curve is not tangent to the budget line. Similarly, we may have another case where the consumption of some good is zero, means that the optimal choice is taking place at the boundary on either axis. Again, this is the budget line, and we got the map of indifference curves. So if the budget is not allowing our consumer to consume on any on higher indifference curve, or it cannot touches the indifference curve somewhere here or here, so the optimal choice is taking place at the boundary of horizontal axis, and our consumer is consuming x1 star level of x1 good. So in this case, this is the only available budget that is not just only exhausting the budget line, but also give the possible maximum attainable indifference curve or level of indifference or level of satisfaction. However, there may be more than one optimal bundle that satisfy the tangency condition. For example, if consumer indifference curves are like this one, so we have more than one tangency point. However, we have to look into the possible optimal bundles or possible optimal choices. So there are two points where there is optimal choice or consumer is in equilibrium. On both, on this point and on this, the indifference curve is tangent, however it is convex to the origin, where this one is non-optimal bundle. Why? Because this indifference curve is not convex to the origin, and another point which is very important, it is not giving the maximum possible attainable level of satisfaction or indifference curve. As we have studied, any indifference curve that is located away from the origin will give higher level of satisfaction. So the optimal bundle are this point and this one. Consumer demanded bundle, the optimal choice of good 1 and 2 at some set of prices and income. Similarly, we can define demand function, the function that relates the quantities demanded to the values of prices and incomes. So demand is the function of price and income of the consumer, price of a good and income of the consumer. Let's talk about some examples. In case of perfect substituted goods, two goods may be perfect substitutes if they give the same level of satisfaction. It means like our consumer is not interested in either good, he is interested that how much he has or how much units he is going to consume. For example, x1 and x2 are perfect substituted goods, so he is interested in the summation of x1 and x2, maybe he is not going to consume any amount of x2, but how many units he is going to consume of x1 will give him the maximum level of satisfaction. Now what will be the demand if P1, the price of x1, is less than P2, the price of x2? So in this case, if he can get same level of satisfaction from both commodities, and if the price of one commodity is less than the other, so he is going to buy the cheaper good and he is not going to buy any unit of expensive good. In this case is x2. So the demand will be equal to x1 equal to m by p1. He is spending all of his budget on consuming x1 or buying x1. Now what will happen if p1 equal to p2? So the demand for x1 could be any number between 0 and m divided by p1. Now in another case, if P1 is greater than P2, so the quantity demanded for x1 equal 0. This is the budget line. These are the indifference curves. Now if you look into the indifference curve, and in case of perfect substituted goods, these indifference curves are straight lines. So in this case, the optimal choice is taking place at x1 star, where it is equal to m by p1. It is the intercept on x-axis. So from here we can understand that it is because of this condition where P1 is less than P2, and this is the highest indifference curve that our consumer can achieve with the given budget. Perfect complements. So perfect complements are those goods which our consumer is going to use in some proportion, and by consuming just a single commodity doesn't give him or her any level of satisfaction. So a combination of x1 and x2 will give him a certain level of satisfaction. This is the budget line, and in case of perfect complements, the indifference curve is L-shaped. So the optimal choice is taking place where this L-shaped indifference curve is touching the budget line. I would not say is a tangent, because we can draw many tangents here, but it is just touching the budget line. So this is the possible attainable indifference curve, and our consumer is in equilibrium. He or she is getting the highest possible level of satisfaction by consuming his or her budget. Goods may be neutral or bad. The consumer spends all income on the good she or he likes and doesn't purchase any of the neutral or bad commodity. If commodity 1 is a good and commodity 2 is a bad, then the demand function will be x1 equal to m by p1, and our consumer is not buying or consuming any unit of X2. Now, what will be the consumer optimal choice or consumer equilibrium when the indifference curve are concave preferences? Now, if we look into point X, this is non-optimal choice. Why? Because it is situated on lower indifference curve, whereas point Z is an optimal choice. Why? Because it is giving the maximum possible level of satisfaction, or our consumer is on higher indifference curve. So in case of concave preferences, the optimal choice is the boundary point Z, not the interior tangency point X, because Z lies on a higher indifference curve. Tax is an optimal choice. First, let's talk about quantity tax. A tax on the amount consumed of a good. It depends that how many units you are going to consume of a commodity, as it is tax on unit of commodity. Income tax, a tax on income, and it is in some proportionate of the income earned periodically. Now this equation is the original budget line equation, while in case of quantity tax, the budget line equation will be P1 plus T into X1 plus P2 X2 equals M. Why? Because the price of X1 as compared to the original one is greater than the original budget line. In that case it was just P1, now it is P1 plus T. Revenue. The government collects the revenue, it will be equal to T times X1. It depends upon the number of units consumed of good one. In this case it is X1. Now if a government levied an equal amount of income, or the income tax collected is equal to the as it was in case of quantity tax. So the budget constraint will be equal to P1 X1 plus P2 X2 equals M minus T X1. So the revenue generated by the government has to be subtracted from the consumer budget. Now we can talk about the optimal choice with income tax and the optimal choice with quantity tax. So in which case our consumer will be getting his higher level of satisfaction. This one is the original choice without any kind of tax, and this point is the optimal choice with income tax. The slope of the original budget line and the slope of the budget line with income tax is same, because there is no change in the prices of the two commodities, whereas the budget line is steeper and its slope is greater in its absolute term compared to the slope of the budget line with income tax or with original choice. And the optimal choice with quantity tax, is taking place is this point x1, x2. However, if you compare this optimal choice with income tax, so our consumer is getting higher level of satisfaction with income tax, as it is as the indifference curve compared to the quantity tax is higher, because with the quantity tax the indifference curve is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one. The third one is giving our consumer highest level of the satisfaction getting is higher than the second one, and the second one has satisfaction greater than indifference curve 1. So this is how quantity tax and income tax is going to affect the optimal choice. Thank you very much, and I hope you understand what we have covered today. However, if you have any question, please write and upload to KCMS. I will answer and upload to KCMS. Thank you very much.